There are multiple ways to keep in touch with the Wolf Connection podcast. Through our Instagram handle, the Wolf Connection Pod. And for comments and questions, send us an email to podcast@wolfconnection.org with your comments, questions, and guest ideas for Stephen and myself. You may hear your question answered on an upcoming podcast. Thank you for your support, and howls to you all. Welcome to the Wolf Connection podcast. I'm your host, John Calfa. Let's talk about some wolves. Joining us today from the Wolf Sanctuary of PA, they just surpassed a year or so ago their 40-year mark. So they're in their 41st year out in Lidditz, Pennsylvania. This is Michelle Mancini. She's the education director, or Lidditz. I'm sorry, Lidditz.
Is it Lidditz?
Lidditz, PA. I'm sorry. As I messed that up on the entry. It is. Michelle Mancini, she's the education director for the Wolf Sanctuary of PA. Michelle, thanks for joining us. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you for having us. We're very excited to be on the show.
Yeah, this is, it's always great when Stephen and I can talk to other sanctuaries around the country and really see how other places do it, how they've been getting along, especially being that most of them are 501c3s or nonprofits. And coming out of COVID and the pandemic, it's good to see that certain ones are still hanging around and still hanging in there. So I just want to get a background from you. How did you get involved with the sanctuary, being that it's been a 4-decade plus organization, and where did you grow up? How did this all come about for you?
Sure. So I'm from outside of Philadelphia. So I commute about an hour to the sanctuary, but it's well worth it. But basically I was working at another job, and I heard about the full moon fundraisers that we have once a month. And I thought it was really cool. I've always loved wolves. So I wanted to go and check it out. So I came for a tour and immediately submitted a volunteer application. And then I volunteered for about a year while I was getting my master's degree, at which point they decided to hire me on board because some of the skills that I had been developing were much needed at the sanctuary. And so the rest is history. I've been here ever since.
Nice. That seems to be the track for most of us. I know Stephen and I both started as volunteers, and then we're here in a paid capacity for doing multiple things. So it's amazing how that tracks. What was it about wolves specifically that brought you there? Were wolves always a constant in your life? Were they your spirit animal, things like that? Or did you just saw this event, like you said, and the rest, like you say, is history?
Well, I've always loved animals, but I've always taken an interest in wolves in particular, especially because of the way humans have perceived them over time. So I always thought it was really odd and kind of interesting how people view them as evil, like sometimes as evil, the demons in certain stories or the monster. But then other people really revere them and view them as, spiritual beings and things like that. So there seemed to be a big dichotomy there. And I noticed that it really affects their conservation status. I thought the whole story of them being reintroduced to Yellowstone in 1995 was really fascinating, how they helped the ecosystem. And so I kind of just really felt drawn to wolves. I wanted to learn more about them, to see them in person. So that's kind of why I ended up coming to the sanctuary. And then I would hope that I'm helping us with our educational goals grow towards educating the public about those common myths about wolves, debunking the common myths that are out there and really talking about their true nature.
So how did it get started? What are the origins of the sanctuary?
Sure. So the sanctuary was founded in 1980 by Bill and Barbara Darlington, basically out of a love of wolves. They actually had acquired wolves and had been caring for wolves and wolf dogs in various capacities in their house, in their household area. And in the 1980s, the laws changed in Pennsylvania, and there were more requirements for having wolves and wolf dogs. So you needed to have certain permits, you needed to have certain areas that were fenced with certain fence heights, different things like that. And so the Darlingtons went ahead and complied with all requirements. They had plenty of space already, but they made sure that all of the fence was in compliance and that they got all the permits that they needed. And then at that point, the Game Commission, the PA State Game Commission, which is one of the entities that kind of oversees us, they started to contact the Darlingtons because other people weren't as eager to get into compliance. So there were some animals that were being confiscated and needed a home. So they would contact the Darlingtons for rescue. So we've really always been a rescue at heart from the very beginning. And we continue in that mission today.
Wow. Yeah, it seems that seems to be a track for most places, that they start as it almost seems like a mom and pop operation at first, and then it grows into a larger capacity rescue and things of that sort. Where do you normally find most of the wolves and wolf dogs that come to the sanctuary? How do they come into your care? Are they forever homed with you guys? How does that part of the operation work?
Yeah, so most they do live out their lives here. Once they come to us, they live here permanently, and most of them do come from household settings. So in Pennsylvania and many surrounding states, it is illegal to have a wolf or wolf dog in a house in household setting without the proper requirements. And more than that, they just require a completely different level of care than your average domestic dog. They have all of these instincts and this nature about them that just makes them really outgrow like a household environment. So even in situations where they might come from a state where it is legal to have them, we will often get a call because they aren't receiving the proper care. And each rescue request is evaluated on a case-by-case basis, not just based on whether or not we have space to take them in, but also if we have the resources to be able to provide for them. Do we have the staff time? Do we have the funding? And do we have a companion in mind that they might be able to pair with? Because they are social creatures. So we want to make sure they have somebody to live their life with.
And what's the carrying capacity at the moment for you guys? I saw, I was going around the website, and it looked as though I think you have somewhere upwards of 20 plus. What's the pack size at the moment?
We actually have 54 currently.
Wow.
But
Okay.
54 individuals. And most of them are in packs that range from size 2 to 4 individuals per pack. And that the number of individuals in a pack really just depends on how many personalities really go well together. So that's why we have a lot of pairs, individual pairs. And then we have some that are, we call them wolf seeking pack on our website, I think, but those are either rescues that we got in who are newer and we're still looking to pair them with someone, or on a more sad circumstance, their companion might have passed away. And so now we're trying to either keep an ear out for rescues that might pair well with them, or maybe trying to match them up with somebody who already lives here who's also alone. And we don't really have a set number that's a maximum number or capacity that we can take in. It really just comes back to that resources thing, because even if we have space to say build a new enclosure, we would still need to keep in mind, well, who are they going to live with? And also, do we have the staff time to be able to commit to a new rescue? Because it really takes a lot of time for us sometimes when they first come in to get to know them. Sometimes they require a special diet or special medications that we would have to administer. And then it's simply just another mouth to feed. So we need to make sure that we have the time and the staff and the resources to provide for another individual.
Is wolf dog breeding a big problem in Pennsylvania?
I would say it's kind of a problem everywhere. So I think there's kind of an affinity for it. People think that it's a good idea to have a wolf dog as a pet because, they have the domestic dog in them, but then they also look cool because they look like a wolf. But a wolf dog can be really complicated because they do have those domestic tendencies, but they also have the wild tendencies, and they're kind of in conflict with each other. So what I mean by that isn't necessarily aggression. One of the biggest problems that our rescues face before coming here is separation anxiety, which dogs can get too. But wolves, it's so much more extreme, and wolf dogs is so much more extreme because they are social animals, and it's in their nature and their instinct to fiercely bond with those in their pack or their family. So if they're raised in a household setting with humans, they don't understand things like work schedules or vacations or any time away. And because of their jaw pressure and because of their other characteristics, they can be really destructive in a household if they become distressed. Or simply, it's just very distressing for them in general, psychologically. So many of our rescues have been surrendered to us voluntarily from former owners simply because their separation anxiety was so intense and extreme that they just didn't belong in a home.
But a lot of them are coming from Pennsylvania, or you get most of your rescues outside of the state?
Yeah, we do have quite a few from Pennsylvania, but we get them from all over. We have some from Colorado, California,
Wow.
New Jersey, New York, Virginia, Maryland. We actually have a pack of 4 that came from Canada. They didn't come from a household. We also take rescues from animal care facilities or zoos that aren't able to care for them for one reason or another. And that was the situation. The zoo got shut down and we rescued 4 of them.
Just describe the facility too, because to house 54, I would imagine you guys have a very large property and being able to build these enclosures. So just give everybody an idea of what the property looks like, what the wolves are dealing with on a regular basis.
Sure. So the wolves occupy, I think it's something like a little over 40 acres or so. So each pack has their own enclosure, and the enclosure sizes range from about 1 acre to 3 acres. Wolves that are, a smaller pack or especially an older pack might have the smaller size enclosures because they aren't maybe moving around quite as much anymore. They're not running and playing and jumping on things. Or if they are, we don't really want them to be because they have joint issues now. So some of the older ones are in the smaller areas, whereas the bigger packs and also the younger packs get the bigger areas because they are really active. They need all of that space to run around, maybe to get some privacy from each other if they would like to. All of the enclosures are natural woodland. So we build the enclosures around the woods basically. And if there's a few enclosures that we constructed in kind of a field area, and then we planted some trees in there for shade cover and whatnot. They all have sheds or igloos as natural shelter because the wolves do live outside 24/7, which actually they much prefer in the winter. They love the winter, but we do have those shelters just in case of inclement weather if they need some place to stay. And then they all have ponds and water buckets / tubs. Some of them lost bucket privileges because they chew on them. So they only have tubs, those packs. And yeah, it's really cool to see them in the natural woodland environment, as free as they possibly can be, but also safely enclosed so that they're not in danger.
Yeah, we call when the winter season starts to approach, we start saying winter wolf is approaching because their behavior changes so drastically.
Yeah.
Can you describe for just folks listening who haven't met wolves or wolf dogs, like how they change on your property, at least what you've observed, how they change as they approach winter and how their behaviors change during winter?
Yeah. So first off, they just get way more active. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of a really hot, the dog days of summer. So they definitely like to conserve energy. They take naps.
Yeah.
They relax. But then in the winter, as soon as it starts getting cold, the first thing you notice is they're howling a lot more. So the really cool thing here with 54 wolves is when one pack starts to howl, they all respond. Because of course wolves howl to communicate. So the packs all communicate with each other here at once. So they're all 54 are kind of singing together, which is kind of cool. And in the cooler months, you'll hear that multiple times throughout the day. Whereas in the summer, it might be more reserved to early morning or late evening when it's the cooler times of day. We do notice a little bit of increased aggression or tension among some of the females on the property. Of course, wolves naturally would breed once a year. All of the wolves and wolf dogs here on the property are spayed or neutered. So they're not breeding here. However, they still go into that behavioral shift around the season, the fall, early winter season. And we actually did have to separate one of our packs because of that. There was some tension between the females that was just escalating. So that does happen. But other than that, they are very excitable. And on a snow day, they just romp and play. They're out in it. And we try to get out there too to take as many pictures as we can. But they are just absolutely loving the snow. They don't want to miss a snow day.
We get the same thing out here. I mean, it's obviously less than you guys over there in Pennsylvania. We actually just started hitting a cooling trend. So it dropped from the 90s. Now we're in like the low 70s and high 60s. So right away, these guys are they're like all of us, I think, are happy that summer's sort of over and we're in the winter season to a degree. How long does where are you guys located in Pennsylvania? Because I didn't like, in what portion of the state, and do they get that all four seasons look, I guess, like most of the East Coast states get?
Sure. They definitely get all four seasons. We are sort of southeast PA, but we are definitely west of Philadelphia and the suburbs. So it's actually northern Lancaster County. Lancaster County borders Maryland. So it's a southern county in Pennsylvania. And yet we are on the eastern half of the state, if that makes sense.
Got it. That makes sense. And what's the general feeling? Because Stephen and I are both originally from the East Coast. So what's the feeling that you get with people that come there around wolves and wolf dogs? Is it anti-wolf? Is it pro-wolf? Is it, or not even that? Are they in the middle? What do you guys usually see with individuals that you get surrendered wolves and wolf dogs from, and just anybody in general that comes in through your doorway?
It's definitely folks that visit us. It's definitely positive, almost all the time. You might get a handful of people who might contact us that might have more negative views, but it's definitely not as frequent as out west. I've visited Yellowstone a couple times, and definitely there's a lot more negativity out there, especially Northwest, than here on the East Coast towards wolves. However, there aren't any wild wolves in Pennsylvania, so I think that that totally changes people's perspective towards them. People who surrender their animals here, and a lot of our visitors, sometimes they view them, they have the view of them that they're more like pets, so the more domesticated kind of view of them, where they just want to, they just absolutely love them. And, we love them too. But we try to convey through our tours, it's okay to appreciate them, but you should also respect them, because they're not, huggable teddy bears, as much as they might look cute and cuddly. They are still, dominant predators, and they are very strong and independent. And, we try to offer them that respect here. And we try to convey that on our tours as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely appreciate that, what you said a few minutes ago about really conveying the fact that these aren't pets or meant to be kept in a household setting, and really trying to dispel a lot of those myths we've had individuals that have had their wolves or wolf dogs as guard dogs, and clearly that doesn't work out. So it's really just conveying that information and getting that across to the public. For you as the educational director, what's your daily or weekly job really entail? Are you getting out into, because I know you guys don't have ambassador wolves per se that go outside of the sanctuary, but what's your goal and your aim to really dispel those myths? And what are some of the major myths that you guys see up in Pennsylvania?
Sure. So the main way that we do all of our communications is we don't have ambassador wolves to take off the property. We have people come on site to see the wolves through guided tours.
Right.
So we are a sanctuary, and we try to stress that to people. We aren't open like a zoo. So we try to make sure that there always is a guided tour guide who's very passionate about our mission, who's with people at all times. So sometimes when we get a large crowd, we might have what we call a self-guided tour, but there's still a guide at the pack providing that information. So that's really important to us, that there's always that level of interpretation where people aren't just observing the wolves and their behavior, they're also getting information about it. As far as some of the myths, I think one of the biggest ones is, having a wolf in a household or having them be domesticated. And we try to dispel that. There's also like the mysticism around wolves. So wolves howling at the moon, and, having, telepathic powers or something. I don't know. So we try to kind of dispel those common myths and explain, howling at the moon might come from the fact that in the wild, if they're hunting, and they are more likely to succeed at hunting under the light of the full moon because it's bright out. We really stress that. We tell that story a lot during our full moon tours, because people come to the full moon tours and they ask if the wolves are going to howl at the moon and things of that nature. So those are the big ones, and really trying to convey that they just aren't even when we do socialize with them, I like to use the word socialization instead of domesticated. When we do socialize with the wolves, it's always on their terms. So we're trying to, we're not making them depend on us for as their pack member. Like we want to make sure that they're with somebody else here. And that's, that they can bond with another wolf or wolf dog on the property rather than on us for that.
I appreciate that, that you guys are really taking that approach and that you're really trying to keep them socialized in a way that benefits them. And so everything that you're saying really coincides with a lot of stuff that we try to do at Wolf Connection too. So I just want to say that I appreciate what you guys are doing and how you're doing it. I mean, this is wonderful that there's other places across the country that are doing this. Do you ever go outside yourself, the sanctuary? Are you going to schools? Are you talking at meetings or things like that? What's your portion of the outreach that you're trying to do to educate, aside from individuals that come for tours and that they have a self-guided tour inside of the sanctuary itself?
Yeah. So we offer, sometimes I do them personally, and then I also have some volunteers as well that will sign up to do these, but we'll do presentations at local schools. Sometimes I'll do them virtually with COVID. When COVID hit, we tried to pivot, and if we couldn't go somewhere in person, then we would do virtual presentations. And we also sometimes do virtual tours. So that way I'll actually walk around the sanctuary and they can see the wolves live, but they don't actually have to physically be on the property to do it. So that's another way we do education. But yeah, we'll travel to schools, sometimes like retirement centers in the area. And we usually talk about the sanctuary. And then we also talk about, the wolves here and our connection with them. And then we also talk about, myths that also plague wolves in the wild. So for example, out west, I know with conservation issues surrounding wolves, I know that there's a lot of myths surrounding like how much wolves really actually prey on the elk population and their actual effect on the elk population, and also how much they prey on cattle. And it's usually way overestimated by hunting and ranching communities, and could be potentially underestimated by conservation groups. So kind of just really setting the law straight about what's actually going on with wolves in the wild, in their ecosystem, how they do benefit their ecosystem, but there has to be a balance with human populations and wolf populations, and how the agencies are kind of trying to make that balance happen right now.
Yeah, these are all big things that we try to hit too. And I, again, can't appreciate what you're doing enough. This is great. What's the feedback you get from the younger students or the kids that you may go and see? Are they, do you ever offer any of the kids to come for a camp thing? I know you guys do the full moon hikes, but how do you engage sort of the younger generation and getting them involved in, say, conservation or education like you were just talking about?
Yeah. So we don't do any like overnight camping or anything like that on site, just for safety and insurance issues.
Right.
But actually our full moon events are actually adult only as well because of our insurance and whatnot. But we do invite scout groups and whatnot to come. In the summer, we do field trips a lot for our daytime tours. And kids really, really seem to enjoy it. They really seem to connect with the wolves. And I think a lot of communicating with kids is, a lot of, fairy tales and everything really paint wolves as bad and scary. And so some kids might come on the trip and actually be a little bit nervous or apprehensive, but because of the tour guide's passion and because of how we're presenting the information, and they're seeing them not be, little pets that, the tour guide is drawing them to the fence with treats or anything like that, but seeing them interact with each other, the wolves interacting with each other and talking about the behavioral cues and what their tail position means. And, this one is actually showing dominance, but it's not meaning that they're aggressive. They're just showing assertiveness to their other pack mate, and talking about the family structure. And they really seem to connect with that as well. So it's really cool to see kids take that away. Sometimes they'll adopt a wolf through our symbolic adoption program, and they can kind of contact us and we'll write them letters from the wolf about how they're doing updates and stuff like that. And one student actually did a fundraiser project for one of our wolves who had to have surgery. And so that was really that she really got engaged that way.
So you have visitors daily, or or is it like larger groups less frequently?
Larger groups, somewhat less frequently. We do 4 days a week, usually. Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And then it's just one tour time. So it's, again, not like a zoo where we're open like 8 to 5. It's in the winter, it's noon. And in the summer, it's 10 a.m. That's it.
That's good. Do you find that balances out the pack better in that they have, not that obviously they're used to individuals, you guys all on the property, but do you see that there's adversely a positive or negative effect in the way that you guys have spread it out, that you have a certain amount of people at certain times going through and witnessing them?
Yeah, absolutely. The wolves really appreciate the rest time. They really appreciate the downtime. We have all of them have different personalities. Some of them are more comfortable with visitors and others are less comfortable. Because we're in Pennsylvania and because of the laws here, we don't allow any direct contact or interaction, but still the human presence around their enclosures, some of them do get a little bit nervous. Now, during our tours, we pay very close attention to that. So our volunteers are keeping a close eye, our coordinator, our caretaker. If a wolf becomes stressed and exhibits signs like maybe they're pacing or they seem disturbed, we will change the tour route for that day because maybe they're feeling a little off. So we will make changes. And we'll explain it to the tour group, why we did that. So we're always keeping an eye. The wolves come first here. We're always keeping an eye on them. But also, even though we do those specific tour times, we will actually reduce our tours even a little bit more on the days when we have the full moon events because it's such a long day. So normally we would do a private tour in the morning and then the public tour, but we skip the private tours and just do, the public tour and then the full moon so that they don't have to be up, up and about the whole day.
Yeah, I think it's very important that you guys are able to do that. I mean, how many tour routes are there? Just like, in other words, if you go into, because I'm picturing, because the facility seems large and there's so many wolves you have there, are there multiple routes that you can take? How is it? How are the habitats situated in that you're able to, or do you just skip whatever enclosure it is that you can tell that there's sort of an adverse reaction or nervousness or anxiety, things of that sort?
Sure. So there are a couple different route options that we can do for public tours and also for private tours. Again, because of the way our sanctuary is designed, in part because of the USDA and the Game Commission's requirements for fencing, there has to be 2 sets of fencing between the wolves and the public.
Right.
So because of the way we have those fences set up, there's kind of like a zigzag all the way through the sanctuary. So our public tour, we will actually, it features about half the wolves, whereas the private tour features the whole sanctuary. So, since it features half the wolves, we can do, we call it the lower half. And then if we have to switch things, we might go to the upper half. So for example, actually right now while we're talking, we're getting some fences repaired. And because of that, we had to cut off our lower path area. And so we just switch the tour route to the upper path area and switch the private tour route to the perimeter rather than snaking through the middle.
Interesting. I do like this. I like that. Again, I can't say it enough that I just like the way that you guys are operating and how you're able to do this. And it's obviously been proven for being around for over 4 decades. What's the, I always like asking this. Is there a particular wolf or wolf dog for you, or a particular story that has hit home? Were there multiple over the years that you've been there? What's one that sort of sticks with you in sort of a teaching moment that you've had?
Sure. Well, teaching moment, yes, for sure. Always. I mean, we're learning from them every single day. I'll start off by just saying that, my title is education director. However, because we're a small nonprofit, we all wear many, many hats. So I do help with animal care as well as helping in the office, as well as helping, I do a lot of like the marketing and social media and different things like that. But I'm outside a good bit as well. And 1 day a week, I actually specifically dedicate towards helping with care and feeding and water, from their water buckets and stuff like that. So 4 years ago, we had the opportunity to rescue 6 puppies. There were I think something like 8 weeks old. I had the privilege of getting to help care for them and help raise them, which was a challenge. But it was, I learned a lot from that experience, in part because when we rescued them, we weren't able to rescue the parents for whatever reason. The facility that we rescued them from wasn't able to give us the parents as well. So we just got the puppies. And I will say right off the bat, it is much better for wolf puppies to be raised by wolf parents than by human parents, which is another reason to not have them as a pet. And of course we knew that, but we tried our very best because we had to. They didn't have parents, so we had to step in and step up and try to be their, essentially their parents. So we, our caretaker made for them each day loaves of meat. They all get raw meat, of course. And she included, I think there was like probiotics in there because they're still getting regurgitated food from their mother at that time. So the probiotics would help with their digestive system, as well as various other nutrients. I think there was like some calcium in there and different things. But there were these little meat loaves, and she made 6 of those for 3 meals per day for several months of their life, which was exhausting enough. And then trying to learn to feed them and make sure that, they were being polite to each other, which they worked it out, but it's a lot easier for wolf parents to make sure of that. And also it was really interesting seeing them grow up because when we rescued them from the other facility, so there were 6 puppies. And when the facility decided that they weren't able to keep the puppies, they separated them from their parents. But when they first did that, they actually only separated 4. I don't know if maybe they didn't realize there were 6 at the time. So 2 were left in the den with their mom for another 2 weeks. And those 2 to this day are shy of people, whereas the other 4 are very social and want attention from humans. So those 2 weeks made all the difference, not to mention them seeing, I guess, their siblings be taken away from their parents as well, made them a little nervous. Some people have been able to, maybe 2 or 3 of our caretakers have been able to touch them over time. I was able to touch one of them, but not the other, and not all the time. And, we respect that here. Some sanctuaries won't rescue or won't be able to take in a rescue if they aren't handleable. We take both handleable and not handleable. So, we just adjust our care level based on their needs and their comfort level. So, we didn't force anything. We respected their space. If they chose to come up to us, then we were like, oh, yes, how privileged. But if not, then that's fine. But yeah, it was really interesting to see how, 4 of the siblings are, we go in there to do care or whatever, and they flop down and want belly rubs. And then the other 2 are completely standoffish and kind of more elusive, like you might expect a wolf to be.
Wow. I mean, it's a good lesson, right? That we understand. And it's good that you have both. I mean, we have both too, that people can see that there are some that can handle human contact, handle human interaction, and then ones that it's okay that if they can't get to that point, that's okay.
Yeah.
And they have to, I mean, they're going to live that way either way if in the wild.
Yes.
At any point.
Yeah.
So that's good to have both of those things there. What's the future looking like for you all there? How are things going? Well, again, we're roughly, I would say probably 6 months to a year outside of coming out of the pandemic and things of that sort. Are you guys doing well with your fundraising? How's everything going future-wise in terms of rescuing, in terms of education? Is anything new on the horizon for you all?
Sure. Well, as far as rescue, I'll just get this out of the way real quick. But unfortunately, there is no shortage of rescue requests.
Right.
They come in every day to every week. We get several requests probably a week. And the truth of the matter is we can't take them all because we might not have a specific number that's a limit, but we do have those staffing limitations, and we don't want to overcrowd here. We want to make sure we can provide the best possible life for everyone who is here. Now, if we can't take a rescue, we do contact and network that's housed in a wolf in Colorado, and they will contact other sanctuaries to see if there might be space. But that's another reason why we do education, is because we want to encourage people to not try to have them as pets, because it often doesn't work out. And if there is no alternative option or home for them, then they don't make it, which is really awful. As far as education goes, and as far as the sanctuary goes with funding and everything, we did have a really hard time through COVID. We had to shut down our tours completely right away. And then as we started to open back up, our volunteer program, which our volunteers are amazing. We have up to 30, I think, volunteers that rotate in. And we have several tour guides, maybe 10 to 15 tour guides, who some of them have been here 10 to 15 years volunteering their time. Wow. But when COVID hit, we did lose some of those typical volunteers. And so in order to build our tour program, we rely on their help. So we really had to build back our volunteer program. So it was kind of an inching along process. And what's been amazing and wonderful is the demand for our tours has never gone down. People are just jumping over themselves to come here, which we are so grateful for. I'm so excited. And the only unfortunate thing is we can't accommodate everyone right away, because we're still trying to build back our volunteer program in order to be able to bring people here to see the wolves. So it's kind of a step along process. So just because things are opened up and feeling more like normal, there's still a lag while we're trying to actually still get everyone to come back and get things moving, get everyone trained. And I am happy to say we just had one of our big fundraisers, Wolf Awareness Day. I think it was 2 weeks ago now, and we had 1,500 people that came, which was amazing. So it's a fundraiser event.
Awesome.
So we did self-guided tours, which I mentioned. So that's been going well. And we just keep trying to push forward. You know, there's a few of us, but we're all really passionate. And I think if we just continue to keep our heads down and moving in the right direction, then we're going to keep getting better.
How do you promote or market? I mean, 1,500 people in a day is I mean, that's great. How do you guys get your name out there?
So we do some print advertising, but really, I mean, for Wolf Awareness Day, we mostly just did, social media marketing. We would, put it online, making sure things were available, and kind of spreading by word of mouth. So, we'll put flyers or brochures or information about upcoming events, in our gift shop, so that when people do come, they see that and then they share the information, and then it kind of goes down the line like that. So yeah. And then just some news articles will be posted, about us, like Lancaster, Discover Lancaster and things like that. And people hear about us. Sometimes people hear about us who've lived locally and just didn't know we were there. And they end up coming. So that's been really great.
And how do you secure food for 50 plus wolves?
So that's another thing that we've been really grateful for. So vet care has been a little bit more difficult because that's very, very expensive. But food, most of it, if not all of it, has been donated to us, which has been amazing.
Wow.
So we take donations.
Unreal.
Yeah. So we take donations from, local folks coming for a tour will bring, leftover freezer meat or whatever. But that's going to provide their nourishment for 54 wolves. We also get larger donations like carcasses from local farms. As long as the animal wasn't euthanized using any drugs or anything like that, then we can usually accept the donation. Local hunters will provide deer sometimes. And also local, I don't want to say grocery stores, but sometimes businesses that might have an overstock of beef or an overstock of raw dog food, like Darwin brand dog food or something like that. They might contact us and we might get a skid or two of that sort of thing. So we've been really, really fortunate that that's been the case.
Yeah,
and actually, right now we are trying to do a little bit more advertising to let people know that those are options for us, because we are looking to get a little bit more meat. We have 3 walk-in freezers and they're starting to get a little low. So we are starting to get the word out there a little bit, but we've been fortunate thus far.
Wow. That's incredible. That really is incredible that you guys are able to get that all donated. That's tremendous. Mm-hmm. What are ways that people can contact you, that they can get in touch with you via social media, website, email? What's if they want to come for a tour, just give everybody the the details of how to get in touch and contact you all.
Sure. So our website is wolfsanctuarypa.org. There's no of, just wolfsanctuarypa.org. There's a contact us page on there, which is the best way to contact us. Or our email address is wolfsanctuary@gmail.com. But all of our tour information is on our website. That's also the best place to go to book a tour. You can check availability, and they are still in really high demand. So I always recommend to people, if you go on and it says it's completely booked out for the year, we do open up fresh availability on the 1st of every month when our tour guide schedules become available, because sometimes we don't know what volunteers we're going to have until the 1st of the month. So we do open up additional availability then. But all of that's on our website. Any educational presentations or anything can be scheduled via email or by the contact us page on our website, or any other information, questions about the wolves or our symbolic adoption program. That's all on there too.
And that's the same. So if people, like you were just saying, for meat donations or for food donations, it's the same thing. They go to the website. How do they get in touch with you if they know of either carcasses or meat that they can donate? How do they get
so in touch with either the contact us page on the website or wolfsanctuary@gmail.com. They go to the same place. It's the same email inbox. We also do have social media accounts. We have a Facebook page and Instagram account. Instagram is @PA_wolf. And I think Facebook is just Wolf Sanctuary of PA. And you can message us on there as well. We try to keep up with that, but the best way is emailing our office, wolfsanctuary@gmail.com.
Okay. Got it. Last question for you, Michelle, is when you hear the word wolf, what's the thing that comes to your mind?
That's a tough one. I don't know, not to be corny, I guess, but majestic. I think that they are really misunderstood is another word, I guess, because people really do misunderstand them, and they are meant to be respected. But they are also really amazing. They're amazing creatures. They're fascinating to learn about. Like I said, I learn something from them every single day, whether it be something about their behavior or the bonds and relationships that they form in their packs and things like that. So there's all kinds of, I guess a bunch of different words come to mind, but that's how I feel about it.
And actually, no, one more came to my mind. So that's not the last one, but Steven won't have to edit that. What is there a particular wolf in the pack that you have felt a bond with? I know you talked about the puppies, but there's a specific one now that you go through and you do care for, someone that, or some wolf that has sort of had a bond with you.
Sure. So I like to think that I love them all equally because I do. But I will say, so one of the we'll call them the pups because they will always be the pups to me. But the 6 that we rescued, I mentioned earlier in our conversation that we had to break up a pack because of escalating female tensions around the fall, winter. So that was actually the pack most recently where that happened. And the sisters, I think, really unfortunately, but part of it probably came from them not having wolf parents and having people parents. The tensions escalated and they weren't able to resolve it on their own. So in the wild, they might just separate and live in separate areas. But here at the sanctuary, we had to make that decision for them, which was really hard. But one of those females is on her own now. And we're hoping to introduce her to a new male, but she's always sort of accustomed to when I come up, she tends to come to the fence more frequently, and she doesn't come over for just everybody. So I do feel very special that she really enjoys my company. So I've been trying to spend a lot of time with her and give her extra attention since she is alone, and we're hoping to introduce her to a neighboring male. So I've been trying to sit kind of along the fence with both of them while they meet each other, and hopefully the sparks are flying and be positive. So her name is Freya, and she has a special place in my heart.
I love that. Michelle, this has been very informative. Thank you so much for spending the time with Steven and I. And
yeah, thank you.
Just tell us about this awesome sanctuary. So all the information is going to be in the description, everybody. So Michelle, be prepared to get more emails and Instagram and everything from everybody there. So people can visit Wolf Sanctuary of PA in Leditz. Pennsylvania. I got it right. Lidditz.
What is it?
Lidditz? Yeah, I don't know. Whatever. We'll figure it out. Michelle Mancini, thank you so much. Appreciate you. Just hang for a minute or two after we're done. Just I have some questions for you after this. But thank you for joining us, and all the best of luck to you guys out there in Pennsylvania.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. How's all you out there? And Steven, I'll be with you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Looking to support Wolf Connection or sponsor one of the wolves in our pack? Just go to wolfconnection.org, click on the donate tab, and find out more information.